Mel, why don't you give us a little history of the museum, but let's start even further back. Give us a little bit about your military background and Frank's military background, and then we'll go forward.
Right. I met Frank in the fourth grade at Washington School, and we was in the same class together, and my wife was also in the second grade, but she didn't go to Washington. I went to Garfield School, but then they had too many people in the class, so they sent me to Washington School and left her in Garfield. And I did that for 1 year, and that's when I met Frank, was at Washington School. And then I went in the Navy in 1954, and I was stationed on an aircraft carrier for 2 years, and did the Korea and Japan and Hong Kong and all of that. And when I got out of the Navy, well, me and my wife went to Kodiak, Alaska, and spent 2 years up there on shore duty.
So you were married, you and Dee married when you were in the service?
56, yeah.
Okay.
And so we spent 2 years together on Kodiak, and had our one oldest daughter was born while we was up there. Then we came back to Loveland. We almost didn't come back to Loveland because there was no jobs in Loveland in this late 50s. That was before HP. HP actually helped Loveland. And so we came back here to Loveland, and I worked construction for a year, and then I got on at the post office, and I ended up working there for 58 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And Frank was one of our good friends at that time, him and his wife. And so we ran around together pretty much. Well, Frank ended up getting divorced, and then...
But he served in the Marines, correct?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was in the Marines for 10 years for the National Guard Marines, or he'd go to Pendleton and El Monte, California, and 29 Palms, and he'd spend his 2 weeks there, and then he'd come back here and everything. So. And then we started traveling together in the, I guess it was probably in the 70s that we started traveling with him. And we would go to just antique shows and stuff like that. But we never was really into the collecting till about 75 or so. And then we started collecting the lead soldiers.
What prompted that?
Oh, he just liked them.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'd find 5 or 6 of them in an antique mall, so we would end up, buying them, and he'd collect them. So he probably had, maybe 20, 30, 40 of them, something like that, at the time that we had went to Costa Mesa. And in Costa Mesa, we come downstairs from the hotel, and there was a sign for West Coaster Miniature Toys and Soldiers Show. So that's the first time we ever even knew that they had shows like that for that. So we spent the whole day down there looking at all this stuff because they had just thousands of soldiers. I mean, it was just unreal. I mean, he couldn't believe there was a show like that. And so we ended up that day, we bought the King and Country, which is this outfit over here. And we bought that because that's what they brought to the show to show how to use their product, is what that was. And every year they brought something like that to the shows, and we would end up, we'd get there a couple days early just so that we would get the one that he wanted, because they'd have maybe like 6 dioramas that they would bring to a show, and we would take the one that we liked the best. And we did that for 25 years.
And once again, what year did you roughly start doing?
Late 70s.
Late 70s, okay.
Mm-hmm. And then after that show, they of course were advertising a show in Chicago, and that was supposed to be the biggest show, was the one in Chicago. So we would go to Chicago, and we did that for about 25 years. We went every year to the Chicago show, and it was bigger than the West Coaster show. And then later we started going to one in San Antonio, Texas, because that's where King and Country had a store in there. And so Andy's wife was the one that ran the one down in San Antonio. And like I said, Andy Nelson was the owner of King and Country, and he was a Scotsman from Scotland. And they'd come to the United States when him and his wife got married, and they couldn't get a work permit to stay in the United States. So they went on to Hong Kong and opened up a graphic design, and then he worked for the police department there in Hong Kong. He was a policeman, which a lot of English people were that way. I mean, they kind of hired from England, because at that time England was owned by King and Country. I mean, Hong Kong was owned by England at that time. And so Andy, these pictures back behind me, he would make a graphic design of those pictures, and then he'd make that soldier from those pictures, and that's what those are back there. And up above here is all King and Country stuff that we, over the years, we've bought and displayed. And later when we were building dioramas, that's where he would get his display and everything, was from those up there.
And when did you guys start building your own then?
Let me think. Well, we'd go to shows, and of course, like I said before, we had just this one room then, and Frank made dioramas in here and set up all the soldiers in this little room here. And then we would come back from shows. Well, this room was full then, so we would just put them in the other rooms, and they'd still be in boxes and everything like that, and wasn't even set up. And then we had the big fire here 13 years ago.
Yeah, tell the story of that.
Well, they had problems with the heat in the attic, so they bought big, huge commercial fans to pull that heat out of there. And one of them shorted out, and that's what started the fire. But the fire did not even get here in the basement. It was just the water they dumped water on this for 3 days solid. And we had 36 inches of water down here. So all of this room was completely tore up. I mean, it was just, the soldiers were all over, and we hired a company to come in, and they were going to clean everything up for us and everything. And so that took about a year to do that.
Were you able to salvage most of it?
Pretty much, because the soldiers, they're made good enough that they didn't break or anything. But we had a lot of breakage, because they cleaned them up and they kind of threw them in a big bag and sent them back to us. And I mean, I don't think they realized what the value of those things were. And me and Dee, when Frank, at that particular time, he had just recovered from having a stroke, and so he really wasn't into it. He was still working and everything, but he didn't get really back into the collecting that strong, other than the shows we'd go to. So me and Dee put it all back together, and we spent 3 weeks just repairing guns and swords, and heads knocked off and arms broken off, and we glued them all back together, and we got it all straightened out, but it took quite a while. So then it took us about probably close to 6 months before we had everything, and they gave us a whole building down here to do that in. So that's why we got rid of this one little room. And so this little room here was what Andrus worked in to rebuild the ones that were harmed in the fire and everything. And Andrus was Andrus Florence, and we went to the 4-H fair in Loveland, and he was there, and he had built a diorama, and we said, boy, this is beautiful. And he wasn't there at that particular time, so we didn't get a chance to talk to him. So then when we had the fire, we went back out to the ranch hoping he'd be back there and that, and he wasn't. But his dad was working out there, because he was from CSU. He was a teacher up there. So we talked to him, and he got a hold of Andrus, and we got back together, and Andrus worked in for us for 5 years, fixing the dioramas and building dioramas. So he repaired probably 15 of the dioramas that were water soaked and stuff like that.
And then he went on to be he's an architect now.
Yeah, he took pictures of all of his different pieces that he made us, dioramas, and then sent them to the University of Washington in Seattle, and they gave him almost a full-ride scholarship to be an architect.
Wow.
So now he is an architect living in Spokane, Washington, and that'd be almost 6 years ago, a little bit more than that, but left us. And then his dad went to work for us, and he worked for us about 3 years building dioramas. And then we've not had anybody else. We've had other dioramas because we bought dioramas at the shows from Michigan and from California and different places. So not all the dioramas we have are King and Country or anything like that. We bought other ones to go along with it.
Now, within the museum here, I notice not only do you have toy soldiers and the dioramas, but a lot of various collectibles, helmets and uniforms and the such. How did that all come about?
Well,
How do you?
A lot of people over the time period have had their dads or whatever in their drawer or something like that, and they said, well, we've got these, we'd be glad to let you have them. So we go ahead and take them, and we find room to put them and everything.
Okay.
And a lot of the other collectors, the vehicles and the Keystone trucks and the Bubby L trucks and the Stucco trucks, we collected them also, and those were out at our house for years, and so we brought them down here when we. And most of the pictures in that, we'd find them in antique malls, and we would buy them and bring them back and have them framed and put them up and everything like that. We probably got close to 200 pictures all throughout the whole thing.
Well, now, was the idea just to have this as a private collection or to eventually open a museum? To me, no. I've always seen this as kind of the hidden gem of Loveland that very few people know about. What is the status?
Well, Frank just collected them, and he just put it all together over the years, and for just his own personal use. I mean, we don't charge anything to come to it and see it, and so we've had it open now for, oh heck, close to 13, 14 years that we had it open down here.
But purely by appointment and special events?
Yeah, we don't come down. We used to spend a lot of time down here when we was putting it together and everything, but we don't anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. But we still, like I said, Frank and me and Dee traveled for 35 years putting this all together. And we actually ended up sharing the house for 35 years with Frank, so we traveled everywhere. We was with him when he bought every bit of this. And we would go to an antique store on the way to Chicago. We knew where every one of them was, and we'd find something, and Frank didn't feel like going into the store, so we'd bring it out and show him, and I'll take it, so we'd go back in and buy it.
What do you see the future of the museum and the collection?
I have no idea. Yeah. He left the collection to his kids, his boy and his girl, but like every other, they're not too interested in it, but yet we'll leave it here as long as we can, and I don't know what they'll do with it eventually. Me and Dee have taken care of it. Well, Frank passed away 6 years ago.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. So we've taken care of it ever since then. And we'll make appointments with even just one person, bring them down here and show it. I mean, I love the history that's in the museum and everything. Now, this is the room we started in, and Frank had tables set up here in the middle, and he would have whole collections on the tables of wars and battles and stuff like that. He lost. He had about 300 Elastolians, which were made out of sawdust and glue, and he lost all 300 of them because the water was coming down right on them, and it just pretty much melted them out. And so we had to end up throwing them away.
And you said this side of the room is pretty much dedicated to memory of Frank?
Right, over there. And this was where Andrus, we had him set up to build the dioramas, was in this room here. They brought in the desks and everything and put them up. They were actually from the old First National Bank building, and they were in their basement, and we brought them up here and built the place for Andrus to do his work. Oh. These sculptures are from the Loveland Sculpture Show. Every year we would go, and if there was any of them along the military line, Frank would buy them. And we have, maybe 5 or 6 more of them in and around the museum. And these are the smaller ones. This is a B-17 that was hurt or broken up in the fire. As you can see, we had to put a new prop on here, so this is the prop that was on there. It's broke, so we fixed part of it, but we didn't fix it all. So it's still just a B-17. This is a B-25, is the one that Doolittle had.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. This is an old first phonographs that are portable record player from 1940. So that thing's 60, 80 some years old now, but it still plays. And you'd have to crank it up to make it go a little bit faster. And these are just pictures that we bought in different antique stores over the years. I mean, it took a long time of finding them. None of them came from the same shop. Each one of them's a different one. And we'd frame them and bring them here. This one here, back here, is the B-909, they called it, B-17, that flew into Loveland and gave the veterans rides on it. And then it crashed in Connecticut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that whole thing's there for that. One that you've seen over that we took over to Windsor. It's about that size. But Anders made this one here while he was going to CSU. He probably had 500 hours or more just in this diorama alone. And it's got the hospital here, the old church here, the train station in the background, and all the figures and everything are all king and country on all of these here figures. This is that hospital that I was showing you the picture of it earlier. This is all of those for the hospital. This is what we had for Vietnam. We didn't ever get it done like we wanted it. It's too much stuff on it, but the figures alone on here shows the Marlboro cigarettes in his helmet. And it just is. What I had some other. One of these, I don't remember which one it was, actually has a tattoo on his arm. And I always thought that was pretty. Nope, that wasn't it. But we never got that one done. This is a plane that we picked up at the sculpture show in Loveland. It's all one solid piece of wood. This one here, this plane here is made of solid mahogany. It's they only made one of them, and you had to buy that one, and then you was part of the club more or less that had the one plane from that. But they made one of these, then one of them, one of these. All the Army planes, or all the planes that they were flying at that time, they made them and sold them to someone to belong to that club. And Frank bought this one, and this is the 909, the same as that picture out in the hallway was. And this, we bought that probably 15 or 20 years ago. So that was well before the Collins Collins Foundation even had it. These here, we bought this one at a show in Texas, the highest bidder. And they dinked around for a while, and Frank finally says, I'll give them $1,400 for it. And so that was almost $700 or $800 higher than what the bid was, so they took it. This one here is for the ski. I can't say that word. And then this is the second. But all three of these are all king and country, along with this. Frank had this whole set here made just for him in Hong Kong, and they shipped it to us.
The diorama?
Yeah, the whole diorama. Yeah. But we had most of everything. This is Eisenhower here, and we had most of the figures and everything. It was just that they made the airport for us. Because they had one at a show, but it was sold, so we didn't get it. This is the back side of the one in the front there. Got the train on it. This here is Fort Collins newspaper from 1940. I think it was 40. It's it on there somewhere. Right here. No. Oh, well, okay. Oh, June 14th, 1942. Yeah. And this is a later plane because it's a jet. And it wasn't made till like 44. This card here, he had an extra flat car, so he split the wood and built his own box car, so he'd have a box car in there. This diorama here and all of these here along the wall here are all ones that they brought to the show, and we would buy the whole thing and bring it back to Loveland. So they only had made one of them. They never made another one of it. And the same with this one too. This one here was made by a guy named Joseph Niemeyer in California. And he made this for King and Country. And this is getting ready to go to Normandy. And this was, well, he was a different type of artist. He liked it. It took him 2 years to make it. And it was supposed to have been done in 6 months. So King and Country wasn't too happy about it. But he also made this one over here. The same guy. And we brought this back in the Suburban. And during the fire, this was sitting out in our basement on the table out there. It wasn't up here. It was lucky.
Wow.
This one here is from Berlin. These are Russian tanks coming into Berlin. This is the Jeep from the United States furnished, what did they call that?
Lend-Lease?
Lend-Lease, yes. This one here is what Anders made that he had out at the ranch when we seen it. He was 16 years old when he made this, and you can tell from the figures, they're little plastic figures and plastic tanks and everything. But he still did a fantastic job on it. This one here is the first one that Anders made after we had him come to work for us here. And this is the French people vacating their house because the Germans have come in and taken it over. This stuff here is baby breath from our backyard. And he would take a piece of white board and he would put a 1/4 inch of plaster Paris on there, and then when it dried he'd take his dermal tool and make each one of these little bricks, and then he would paint it like he wanted it to, or that he'd do the same on the walls here, on the foundation of that. This one here is another King and Country. This is in the Pacific, Tara, and this is where they had their product. This is one of the little books that I showed you, that where they had what we would want, we would order from them when they came. This is one that Anders made. And this is a King and Country again. This is another one that Anders made. He's got this little old lady going to church, and the Germans are taking over the church. This one here is North Africa, and this is Churchill here, and Montgomery Drive in there. And this is Munich, and Hitler's prayed that he was pretty good at having, I think there's 140 figures on that one alone, if I remember right. This is another one that they would bring to the show. This is Cossacks in Russia on that one. This is a 2-man submarine here. Pretty close. But this had water in it when we first got it, and we couldn't have the water down here. This is another one just showing what their products would do. And what we liked about what Anders did is see how what he had inside, he did all that in his houses and everything like that. Where King and Country were pretty much just standard buildings. And over on this side, it's just basically all the man oil, gray iron, bar clay, soldiers from back in the 30s. And we have close to 4,000 of them in the museum. And this is, as you can see, a lot of the vehicles and stuff that was in the fire. I mean, they rusted it, but they're still better than throwing them away, so we keep them. This one over here, I always got a kick out of it. It was a little vehicle, got a light on it, and you could turn it on. It's got a little battery on the bottom of it.
Huh.
Yeah, but we had no idea when we had all of this that we had this many of this thing. I mean, look at these vehicles. We got so many of them. Yeah. And it's hard to say how many soldiers we have that are duplicate in that. We put them up there 13 years ago and have never done anything with them since. And these here, this one particular one here is a reproduction of the original. And there's only 2 of these left in the whole world. And this one here sold for $5,000 original. And the guy has the other one of it, and he's asking $10,000 for it now. I don't know where they got it or not, but Frank bought the one for $5,000. And then these over here, on top here, these are the Elastolians, we call them. And they're made of sawdust and glue. And you can see the wire in his leg. And these are the ones he lost 300 of these from the water. And when you pick up one, you usually knock 10 down. And these have never been taken off there to dust. And we didn't have any idea we had this many of them. It just was so surprising when we got them all out. And these guys here, each one of these sell for over $200, the red ones. And the little planes, I mean, we've got all kinds of little planes. I think this one here is $225 for that. Oh. That's what happens when you move. Okay, well, let's go to the next room. We've got a couple more rooms yet, so. And this gentleman here, we purchased him in Las Vegas, and we had the Suburban, so we put him in the back of the Suburban and brought him home. But he wanted to get another one. They had one just like this of the Marine with full gear on it, kind of charging in that. And this one here, we put it up in the front of the office up here, just inside the door. And when we had the big fire here, one of the responders broke the door down to get this guy out. He didn't know what it was. So we put it out in front of the building, and this guy stood guard over everything for about 2 or 3 months out there in the elements. And then we took him home and put him on our patio. And it scared the heck out of my daughter, because she'd come out of the house and she'd see this guy standing there on the patio. So we brought him back.
And you said the kids like to stand in front of...
Yeah, the great place for pictures, especially little kids. They just think it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how many over the years that we've had pictures taken by him and that. Okay, so you want to go in this room down here? This room here is kind of our touring room. And at one time we had all of these trucks. They're all Buddy L and Keystone and Strucco, and they're all from back in the late 20s. They actually started making these. They're made out of pressed steel, so they're heavy. Kids could ride them and everything. This one up here at the Timber Dan show, the white one there, he said it was a very rare one, and he had a gasoline one, and he wanted to trade me his gas tanker for this one, because this is a milk truck. And that's never been repainted. A lot of these have been repainted in that. This train up here is a Buddy L train, and that doesn't have an engine in it. This is a track here on the floor. It goes. And this one here, I don't know whether you can see it or not, but this is a yard, and they had the track set up, and they had 3 kids riding on that train, and they had a stick to push it around the track. And it's a Buddy L. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. This one here has got a pump inside here, right here, and it goes back to this tank, and this pumps air into that tank, and this thing will shoot water 30-some feet. This was made in 1925, and it cost $7.25 at Sears.
Back then?
Back then, so it was quite a toy. And this one here, they even were able to ride on it, and then guide it here. And then we got more of them at home that we haven't brought by. This one here is solid iron. This one here sold for $27,000 in an auction in New York City, just here about 6 months ago. One of the guys from you guys' vets thing looked it up on his telephone when he was here, and he said, "I just sold for $27,000." But most of these we have bought in antique shows and stuff like that, antique malls. These are all the same. These are the Buddy L also, see. But they're heavy. I mean, they're made of pressed steel. The same thing they made fenders out of back then. That's what they did. This particular diorama here, this was a beautiful light green like a pool table. And after the fire, we had it over at Windsor getting cleaned up, and they had a lady with a putty knife in one hand and a vacuum cleaner in the other, and she was just scraping and sucking. And we said, no, just leave it like it is. We'll make a winter scene out of it. I mean, she wasn't doing it justice. This is some more, this is all King and Country here, the same as what's over in the other room. And this would be extra tanks, planes, and stuff like that we had that Anders could make dioramas out of, but he never did use any of them. This is the Higgins boat here on the bottom. King and Country. Yeah. You knock one down, you knock them all down. These over here, this particular fort here, about 6 months ago, Bud Bourne's boy had come to pick up his boy over at CU to take him home. And the boy stood here, and I looked at him, and he had actual tears coming out of his eyes. He says, "That was in my dresser, on my dresser when I grew up." He says, "Every morning I'd get up and I'd turn the guns to where they pointed a different direction or something." But he was actually, I mean, it's that old. And his dad made all of these here. So he was really, he just couldn't believe what we had. We had a lot of trains. Some of the trains were floating in water, so they rusted and everything. But the trains were brand new. They had never been out of the box. And of course, the water was 3 feet down here. So it was just laying in water for a week or two. This is another one here. This is Imajima, and this was made by King and Country, and they've got the tunnels going back in there and everything. You could, play with it and actually lift it up and see the tunnels in there. And that's why they had so much trouble getting Imajima. And they came in and used the fire throwers, and that would suck the air out of there, and the Japanese would actually suffocate in there from no air in them tunnels. These planes up here are all metal planes made by this guy here, and he'd weld them together. this particular chain down here, and the erector set, and the cannon. George Walby, one of the Loveland sculptors, he gave them to us for the museum. And, this is one of the dioramas that we never fixed. This was up in Frank's office, and it just got burnt totally. I mean, just everything. And we decided to just leave it like it was. This is our newest item. A friend of mine gave that to us to put in out here with the chair also. And you wouldn't want to take your grandma somewhere in that chair because that is heavy. I had to get my daughter to help me lift it out of the back of my pickup. It was that heavy. And this guy was in the honor guard in Berlin in the early 50s. And of course he had all the white stuff and everything like that. Very nice. We have quite a few uniforms. This one here was from
West Point?
Minnesota, Faribault, Minnesota, and it was an Army school, what I want to call it.
Academy or?
Yeah, academy for military, and it's Starbuck, and we bought it in Phoenix, Arizona, and brought it home. But this is the literature that we found on it. And this other one, this one here, is a Navy Annapolis. And this guy that wore this one, he was a diving coach for the 1952 Olympic. This is a collection of cars that Frank had collected over the years. These here, they would send him one of these every month, and then he would keep it. So this was way back in this, probably, I don't know, 70s maybe or something like that there was also. And you're surprised how many people said, well, I had that one, or I had this one when they were younger. This collection over here belonged to Andrus, the young kid that we hired. When he was going to school over Greeley, he had an art teacher that said you could make a diorama out of anything. So he found this old cello, and it was all broken, so he made a diorama out of that. This is a tool, or ammunition box here. This one here was a projector, and this was from the Holocaust. And he said that when that was made, this lit up, and it would look just like a rainbow in there. It was very touching. And these are all the planes I brought over from the other room over there. This is a diorama that Andrus actually, the young kid, made when he was 11 years old. And this one, and this one, and this one. These are all when he was 11 and 12 years old. But he got started on these. These over here are tanks, vehicles and everything made out of cardboard. They're just a piece of cardboard that you'd buy in a box like this and put that together. And then you had that there. This is the same thing as this one here. This one here is one of the collectors that we bought from. Every time he'd send us an order, he would enclose one of these with it. And Frank was afraid that he didn't want to make him mad or anything, so he just would go ahead and buy it. But those are fairly expensive. This one here is Roy Rogers. I think it sold for $500, I believe it was. Yeah. $550 for that one alone. We had an awful lot of the G.I. Joes in here, and they got wet, and we tried to dry them out, and the water would just stay on the glassine and wouldn't dry. So we would take them out of the boxes and then let them dry that way. So that's why we have so many of them that are out in the boxes. And we've got probably 50 of them over here the same way that we have them put out. Then we got another room yet. This old trank here, it actually winds up and still works. And that's made by stucco, the same as that white truck up there was. But that is really old. These are all King and Country here, marching bands, the same as what the other ones. They also make Christmas one every year. And my wife has got the full collection of them. And these little ships down here are all made out of wood. And they were made by Keystone Camera Company. This particular one here had a target on the side. And it would blow up. And it's got a mouse trap in there, and that's what blows it up. It'll go that high up in the air. And the rest of these would shoot ball bearings, or they'd shoot the planes off the front of them. This here group here is the pigeons that all the armed forces used back during World War II. Each country would have thousands of pigeons, and these here little things there with the horses pull them, that's the home for the pigeons. That was their pigeon keepers. This is after the Kellys heroes, and they're King and Country, and these are all King and Country. And then over here, this particular one here, this looked like this here when it was brand new. And this was up in Frank's office, and this is what it looked like after the fire. And this is the kid that worked on them and got them fixed. This is what this building looked like after the fire. The top floors were completely burned. This particular one here only came up to here. It was made by Hong Kong. So Andrus went ahead and made a new deal out of it completely. This is a PVC pipe here. This is a bowl, and he had a pipe up here that he dropped dry ice in, and then he'd put water in there, and this whole thing would smoke. And we had a lady from Liverpool, England, and she said after the war, she said this was their playground. All the kids in the neighborhood would be climbing all over that. She said we'd find a bomb that didn't go off. We'd call in the special services, and they would debomb that, take the fuse out of it. This particular one here, this guy here lives in Loveland, Bart Bobbitt, and he was in Vietnam. So this was a ship that he was on in the Navy. And so after the war, they took it out and sunk it and made a reef out of it. This one here, this guy here went to school with Andrus up at CSU, and this is him feeding a little girl candy in Desert Storm. This one here, Andrus's dad helped take care of this mule here. And this mule here, this is where they came through Loveland in '54, going to the Cheyenne Frontier days. But they could take these mules, the gun off of them, and put it back together in 2 minutes and have it ready to fire. These are small dioramas here that Andrus would make for us. But they were still pretty expensive to buy it because each one of these figures would be about $50 a piece. So you have $250 just right there in figures, let alone not the artwork we're doing it. This one here is a sculpture that was made in Loveland that is on, it was made for the Navy, and these are all the ships that was in the Normandy invasion. Not all of them, but a bunch of them. And this is on Omaha Beach in Normandy, the big one now. This kind of shows a picture of it. This one here was North Africa, and this was the Australian forces that went into North Africa for the war. And you can tell because here they've got the kangaroo on the gun. But this is the last one that Anders made for us before he went off to college. This particular one here was made by a guy down in Florida, and this is, we bought it in Chicago and brought it home, and we had probably 20 boxes of things to put back on here. So it took me and my wife 3 weeks just to put this one back together again. And this was what they called sub pins, and the submarines would go back in there at night or when the bombs were coming, and then the bombs would just bounce off 15 feet of cement there. And then so they made this one here called the Big Boy, and that would go deep down underneath them and cause like an earthquake, and then that would take out the sub pins. And these are all German figures. This one back here is a submarine that we brought back from Chicago. And what the guy that we bought it from said, this submarine was made for the Science Museum in Chicago, where the 505 submarine is at. And this is a newer submarine than the one the 505 had. And you could tell it was newer because this is a snorkel here, and they didn't have the snorkels on the early submarines. And these over here are some more. This is in the Pacific, and Andrus's dad made these for us, and this is one of the islands in the Pacific. These two here, this is one of Normandy, and these guys here are the English commandos, like the SEALs for us in the United States. And this would be them taken out of the bunkers. This is North Africa here, and this the German people like to do a lot of filming in that, so they were filming something all the time for training and stuff like that. This is more of just uniforms over here. This is actually the tank that Frank Ward was on. And we found it up in El Monte, California. So he had the guy make him 3 of these tanks. So that's what those are. This is made out of metal. And we sent one of them to Hong Kong with Andy for King and Country. This is the uniform that I had on in this picture here for one of the shows that we was at. And my wife had this one in that same picture. Oh, I'm sorry. This one here, Anders' dad made this one, and this is Searching for Private Ryan, and this is him, Private Ryan, right here. And here's the picture that Andy made, that he would then tell us people to make that figure. And he was a graphic designer in Hong Kong when he came from Scotland. And these guys are all cardboard cutouts that they had during World War II. And these two are ones that Anders' dad made also. And these over here, this is the cavalry. And the cavalry are going into the Indians that are going to get ambushed. There's already 2 of them that they got. still shoot the archery, so they made this for me for Robert Hood. And these figures are also done by King and Country. And then he made this one for this lady. She passed away. She owned one of the stores up in Minnesota, Tree Frog Treasures, and it's still there selling this stuff. And this is her here that they made in honor of her having that store. And then these are some of the older Barclays and Mandoyle. But as you notice, these are in perfect shape. There ain't a bit of paint missing from them or anything. And those are early 40s at the best. So it could even be longer ago than that. The only thing I can say for sure, see, some of these are World War I helmets on there. And these here are the more modern helmets for World War II. This here is 2 logbooks from the 1830s and 1837 on board, and it's very hard to read it. You can read it, but it's all that old English, and they, of course, they used a pen with a feather on it that many years ago. This is where Andrus made this one, and this is where Eisenhower here is coming to check on the people leaving for Normandy the next day. And this would be the paratroopers that paratrooped into Normandy. This is the plane that carried him there. And the plane had no artillery on it. It was just a plane to transfer the paratroopers. This corner over here is honoring Dory Miller. And they just now made an aircraft carrier that will be in his name. And this is the aircraft carrier that's going to have his name on it now. And he was killed in 1941, I think it was. He was lost at sea in 1972. A destroyer, the USS Miller, was named in his honor. And this is Admiral Nimitz pinning the cross on him. From the this is a guy that went to school with us. His dad's uniform in World War I, and he was in the cavalry. This is the cavalry, and this is a picture of the cavalry. This is one here that Andrus made. This is a desk, is what this is. You can see it goes clear on around. So I guess we're never going to have to move the desk. This is a Japanese carrier. As you notice, the superstructure is on the left side, where in the United States it was always on the right side. And these are little Coke bottles they made for binoculars, and all these little windows are water lids. And he cut all of this wood to where he could fit that all in. And Andrus's dad made this one for us. This is Barstow in Germany. And so he found this here while he's walking over at Greeley. So he decided he put these inserts in and then made the scene. Did a beautiful job. These figures here are all Elastolians made after World War I in Germany. And they're made out of sawdust and glue. And this is the Notre Dame or Army. And this is, wait a minute. Okay, this is a German band. And this is a German band over here. And those are all made out of just paper, like paper mache, sawdust and glue. That's about it.
Well, Mel, thanks for a wonderful tour of the museum.